Now, jumping ahead to Pilate, Pilate was a regent king. Pontius Pilate was in control of the whole Roman world east of the Mediterranean Sea. He was the king there. He reported to a king. That king's name was Caesar. He thought he was God. He'd been told, you have God in your blood. You're God. You can do whatever you want. If you want to build a standing army and all your people are in the army already and you need more people, go into the villages. Say, kid, 8 years old, you're in my army. Why? Because I'm king. I'm God. I'm king. It's the same thing, same word. So Pilate was the king, and his boss, the king, was Caesar. And at this place in John, this is where Jesus has been brought before the Sanhedrin, brought before the Jewish court that's not supposed to meet in the middle of the night, but did. He's already been abused a little bit. And he comes before Pilate, and Pilate says to him, are you a king of the Jews? I mean, Pilate was somebody who was trained from childhood to be this regent king. He was a soldier. He knew how to use all the weapons that they had. He knew how to ride a horse. He knew how to wear armor. He knew how to do all this stuff, how to go into a village and say, you in my army, you in my bed, you, give me your money. You don't have any money? Well, I'll take your land. You need to feed my soldiers. You need to... He was used to that. That's what a king was to him. And before him stood this man who was a priest and could heal people, who was a prophet and spoke the truth to people. And he didn't know where the kingship of Jesus was in him. I don't imagine Jesus looked very soldierly. I don't imagine he looked like he even knew how to ride a horse, let alone a war horse, or how to wield a sword, perhaps a plowshare, perhaps a hammer, perhaps a saw. But a sword? So Pilate, the king, the regent king, looks at Jesus, who was also a regent king, and said, are you king of the Jews? And in the Gospel of John, Jesus tries to explain it to him a little bit. In the other Gospels, the only response Jesus makes at this time is, you say that I am king. But in this one, in this Gospel that was written way later, kind of inspired by the happenings of the early church, Jesus speaks to the man and says, my kingdom is not of this world. And that's fine with me because I really don't like kings. I don't like the fact that they can walk into some town and take all the young men and say, you're in my army. I don't like the fact that they can tax my land away from me. I don't like the fact that they tax me at all, that makes me have to work at a job that maybe I don't like. I've done that. This one I like. I don't like kings. I don't like that we celebrate Jesus as a king. It bugs me because I don't want him to be one of those people who can say, you in my army, you in my bed, you give me your land, give me your money. But Jesus says, I'm not from this world, and what he means is he doesn't do it that way. The king that he works for is God, the creator and sustainer of this whole world. Jesus talks about the kingdom of God and the kingdom of heaven. He doesn't talk about the kingdom of Jesus. He doesn't even talk about the kingdom of the Messiah. The Messiah is the anointed one of God, God's hands and feet, God's mouth, God's mind, God's heart in the world. And we're getting ready to celebrate the time when we can say God actually made God's self manifest in the world in Jesus Christ. But as I was studying all these scriptures and Revelation and so on, the idea is that he's not the only one who reports to the big king. We do, too. We are to be, as it says in Revelation, a priestly kingdom who serves God, our King. We are also to be priests and prophets and kings. Now, there's the issue in our world that some folks think they're king or that they should be king. And they take it out on their families. Or they take it out on their neighbors. There are kings in this world today who kill their own people because they don't say the right thing to them. I think one of the reasons I don't like the idea of kings is because I'm an American. It's in the Constitution. We're not going to be ruled by a king. That's why we get to say what we think. That's why we get to bear arms so somebody can't come into our house and go, "You, in my army." Excuse me, I think I would rather not. In a democracy, we have to be vigilant about making sure that we are good citizens. And this country, I do believe, was created and built by people who were inspired by God, chosen by God. Many of them were Christian pastors. And I think that it all comes down to who's our king. And we need to remember that, yes, Jesus is our king, but he's really a regent king. God is our king. And we need to always remember that. Because if we don't, then someday we'll stand next to somebody who looks at Jesus in a different way than we do, and we'll be able to kill them. We'll be able to say, you don't believe the way I do. My king is Jesus. My king is Jesus the Christ. My king is Jesus of Nazareth. My king is Jesus the carpenter. My king is Jesus the King. And that's fine, except that God is king. Jesus even said in Hebrews 2:12, "Even I live by putting my trust in God."